Hi, I am Dr. Kim Sage. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am so glad you're here, as I always say, but I really am. And I've been excited to share with you this new topic around what I call fragmented childhoods, fragmented parenting, as I kind of think about how I approach cases and how I help people. Certainly how I think about what I've created in my courses. In fact, though, I'm going to probably add a video or two on these. This is my course on understanding borderline and or narcissistic parents who remained untreated, parents who were emotionally wounding, emotionally immature, and there are many, many, many lessons, in fact 75 videos, journal exercises, affirmations, meditations, you name it, and my other course called Remothered, which is about how to heal the inner child and the inner parent. And that course also has a ton of videos and meditations, affirmations, journal work, and lots of exercises. And that actually relates to today's video. I was thinking about, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, the idea of toxic parenting and how much I don't necessarily love that word because I think it pathologizes often wounded parents. But at the same time, I always want to hold compassion for those who are struggling with accountability. And as I will keep saying, though, my core on this channel is to validate you as often an innocent child or victim to parents who for whatever reason struggled and how that has impacted your life. So yesterday I talked about many of the common experiences of people who have this more fragmented parenting. And so today I'm going to go into what I mean by this fragmented self and the parts to it. And then tomorrow's video, we're going to go into how to use this little example and model that I've been using for myself and how I think about treatment with patients in terms of the areas of their lives which are often fragmented. Really quickly though, also if you're new here, please consider subscribing and checking that little box. And that way you'll get notified when I post new videos. Everything on this channel is really about childhood wounds and relational wounds in our adult and childhood lives and how to work on healing ourselves. And so I'm just glad you're here. Okay, so what I want to share is that when I think about, let's say, a new patient, in many regards, I'm assessing a lot of things. But as we go into therapy, I've kind of narrowed it down to how I see where I'm looking for wounds. And the reason why I like this word fragmented is because it really means these, like, I think of it as these like jagged edge ripped off pieces that would normally be in a whole child, like a circle. If the circle was your childhood and it was generally whole and healthy, you know, you might have some torn edges here or there, but generally the areas of your life around emotions and relationships and kind of how things functioned in your body, in the family system, they were generally safe and okay. But for so many of us, some parts or all the parts can have these fractures to them. And so I like the idea of fragmented because what we're really talking about is a disorganized, broken into separate parts, like these broken pieces. But the truth is we're still functioning somehow in many cases. And in fact, many of us find really incredible strengths and ways to function, but it doesn't mean we're not carrying these wounds inside. And so that's kind of what I wanted to share with you, is to teach you a way to think about your wounds, to advocate in therapy, to do research, to support yourself and get a kind of a grip on understanding kind of a holistic perspective of a fractured or difficult or even toxic childhood. So for me, when I think about, I've really narrowed it down to 3 areas, and I'm going to show you a graphic here too, but basically we have what I call there are 3 parts, okay? And they get split up and we have the same parts in our inner child, the part of us that is the unhealed, still very much living in many ways from the child's perspective, and then the adult part of ourselves, the grown part of ourselves, the survivor part of ourselves, who is out now today in the world watching these videos, dealing with their lives, but often still trying to deal with that push-pull of the child's wounds inside. So it'll make more sense as I show you what I'm talking about. But basically I group a person's childhood in terms of how they survived it in 3 main groups. The first one is their emotional and mental life. And this really is everything to do with their emotions, how they express emotion or not, their thoughts, their beliefs, their sense of self, who they see themselves as. It really is about how they think and perceive the world, how they deal with the world from an emotional and mental perspective in some regard. The second group is what I call the physical self. So this is the physical fragmentation, where here we can have issues around our nervous system. In other words, our trauma responses, our fight or flight. We might always be hyper vigilant because we had parents who were, always fighting and always unpredictable. So how does that part of our life, what does that look like really? What does it look like in our body? That also affects the behaviors, like do we use substances, do we numb out, do we dissociate? Everything around behaviors, whatever we do. Do we have obsessive tendencies, compulsive tendencies, all of that stuff? Do we have fears that hold us back from trying new things? Any behavior you can think of. And then we have issues around physical boundaries, but that can also, we can find boundaries in that emotional group too. But just thinking about our physical body, our physical space, how we engage in the world around boundaries, our intimate needs in terms of our intimate parts of our lives with partners or not, or ourselves, how we engage or don't, or think or express ourselves, and really the needs of our body. So it's really everything related to the inside and outside of your body. How is a person managing that? And lastly, I think of the last group as the relational parts of our lives. So that really is attachment patterns and behaviors. So I'm looking at, do they have more avoidant patterns, or do they have more of a mix? And how does that express itself? And so I'm really thinking about their mental and emotional functioning, how their body is functioning in the world in all the ways I mentioned, and how they're functioning in relational patterns, okay? So as you can see on the graph, that's basically split into two parts, what I believe come from a lot of other fragments in terms of the childhood, meaning that the parents had issues in different ways, right? They had different challenges. Maybe they were really safe emotionally, or one parent was, but the other parent wasn't. Maybe they were really good at helping you express emotions, but really bad at boundaries of their own emotions. And so that's the issue, right? We're all different. And so part of this is helping you target where are the wounds you have in each of these three categories. And within those categories, where do you have work to do? So I'm going to talk more about that in the coming videos. So as you can see here, this one side is the child self. So there's the child part that has fractures around emotions, emotional expression, thoughts and beliefs. The child part may have issues around their nervous system, right? We're still operating from a child's nervous system because we learned that that was how it had to be. Or our attachment patterns are still very much driven by the inner child who says that no one is safe and no one can be trusted. So that's living in us all of the time. And then the flip side is the adult self. And you can see in this little graphic here, I have a picture of the child inside the adult body, because the adult body is the one in control. So the adult body has also made adaptations. It's not like we're always in our child self. So our adult self has grown and made some survival adaptations and some resilience. C is functioning at times. And so we can access that adult self sometimes, but oftentimes we can't, or we don't know that we're in the child self. But that would be looking at, how does the adult self handle emotions, emotional expression, thoughts, beliefs, everything. And how do they want to handle things, even if they know that they're struggling with it. Same thing with the nervous system. Same thing with the attachment patterns. So what does this really look like? What I'm saying is that we're holding in the inner child these fragmentations, and we have these fragmentations or these adaptations of the fragments as our adult selves. So I'm going to go into tomorrow's video what this looks like. But the bottom line is that I want you to start to look at each of these categories and ask yourself, what is the child part of me, that wounded inner child that feels oftentimes unsafe, can't trust others, is afraid of the world or taking risks, believes that bad things will happen, feels anxious all of the time. And then what parts of that have wounds, and then what parts of the adult self are functioning well, or at least have knowledge and access to function well, that can come in and help deal with the child. And so that's why I talked about in this course, I believe that we are our inner child and we are our inner parent. And so what we're trying to do at all times is manage both of them. The child self, we want to be able to come in as a loving internalized parent and help that child self. Now there are places where the inner child self can be helpful in accessing play and being present and that sort of childlike wonder. I'm not talking about extinguishing that. I'm just talking about the impulses that come, or the wounds or the fears from the child self, and how to help the adult part of us, the healed parent, set up our lives. And that is what I talk about in the course too, which is, it's not just looking at yourself on a sticky note in the mirror and saying, I love my inner child, or you're so lovable. I mean, those are great things. But I think we have to set up our lives in what I call a 3-part protocol, which is in this course, which is really how we self-soothe, how we provide nurturing, and how we provide safety for ourselves. So it's about how we set up our lives emotionally, relationally, and physically, kind of going back to what I was just mentioning in this fragmented parenting, that helps us heal, that helps us not live in those places that sometimes, even though they're understandable, the child wounds, if we respond and act from them, they can actually be very difficult in our lives. And so we'll talk tomorrow a little bit more about what this looks like. So I hope you will join me there. Thank you so much for being here, and don't forget to subscribe and hopefully join this growing community. I'm so grateful to be here and so thankful, and I'm always trying to remind myself what my purpose is here, and it really is truly to help you understand and illuminate what happened to you so that you can figure out the resources and the support and the work to heal your life. Not to erase your wounds of your past, but to develop new tools and to make some shifts inside that no longer really are dictated by your wounds, but are dictated by that more internalized, loving parent, healing self, and hopefully the relationships and other things in your life. So thanks for watching. Please stay safe and well, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.